Well, guys, this is Greywish. Sorry for the black screen, but I want to talk about something very, very interesting. So, as I've been learning and I've been growing my skills, I have been having a difficulty communicating and all that sort of jazz. But I kind of wanted to explain exactly what I'm doing, and I want other people that maybe need like a little seed or something, just so they can kind of like get the concept in, because I know a lot of schools don't teach this for various reasons. Probably because it takes too much time, maybe that for other reasons. But what I'm gonna say is, your best source is yourself. I'm growing. I'm growing and learning every day, and I noticed how easy it is to trick people. How easy it can be to manipulate data. So everything that you read, everything that you see online is intended, from how I see it, it is intended to give whatever effect whoever made that source, not necessarily what is true. Everything on the internet, a valid source or not, can be manipulated to reach the intended outcome of the source maker. So that's why the best source is yourself. My belief is everyone can become intelligent, so instead of outlining the skills, I will tell you about interesting concepts to grow on your journey. Everyone first has to work on psychology, so I will say this. Become a seeker/scholar. I will first focus on some hard psychology concepts that will help with this. So this is basically my rules that I go by. Depending on who you are, you may discipline yourself more, you may discipline yourself less. It's dependent on you. You can go at your own pace. So number one, don't go too deep. Go a little bit at a time. Understand the details of why yourself instead of from others. That really means if someone says, "Oh, this very small piece of logic, it works this way," don't believe that from the base. If you see that it goes into something that's bigger, try to make that bigger thing yourself. Because then, if you figure out those small pieces actually make sense in a logical format, then you actually know that source is real, which means the best source, sadly, is always going to be yourself. Two, understand that not knowing something shows you're intelligent enough to always learn more about it. Featuring Socrates. Basically, Socrates is all about if you know that you know nothing, then you are more intelligent than somebody who says they know everything, because you're more capable of taking in new information than saying, "Oh, I already know that," or assume that it's useless because you already know everything you need to know. Three, learn to listen but be skeptical of all the viewpoints. Consider what you see the most. So be skeptical of all the viewpoints, but if you see there's a lot of viewpoints that have one aligning thing, what you can do is you can then test it further and see if it actually makes sense. And then if it makes sense, then that viewpoint is actually correct. Which also, again, the best source is yourself, because you always have to double check what everybody says, even if they consider it a valid source. Because a valid source may be considered a valid source, but if it doesn't align with the actual logic of the small things that everybody tends to overlook, then now it's no longer a valid source. It's just viewed. Okay, now four. Work a little bit on problem solving. Start taking the concept apart and learn it yourself. So, as I said, you can start taking the concepts apart, but also learn how to put them back together. Because once you know that you can take them apart, as you see how they go back together, you're able to identify what those base logic pieces do and their limitations. So, creative thinking and problem solving are probably things that you got to look up. And I would say look up a lot of the things and study them depending on what one of these points you want to focus on. Because some people might have one of them down, some people might have like almost all of them. You never know. Uh, Five, learn how to talk to people and learn how many people think. Focus on what makes them unique and differ from society. Figure out if people are lying from listening intently. So, what this really means is you got to learn how people sort of think. You got to learn what is the norm, and the norm is usually affected by the varied sources and what is unique about them. Unique things can be how deep they go into it. So basically, they know more about a subject than even the sources do because they actually gone deep into that subject. So you're able to listen intently, and then if you can determine they're lying, you can figure out if that person is a valid source or not. 6. Don't see failure as a wall. See it as a step forward. Make that negative feeling a good thing. Basically, don't see your failures as a reason that you've done something wrong. See it as you've done something right. Because trial and error is really how you figure out how some of the base logic pieces work in the bigger picture. 7. After a week, see how far you got from your efforts. Basically, that's more of like a motivator because you can look back and see how far you've gotten. And from doing that, you'll be able to say, hey, I've improved here, 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 and here. It's basically self-reflection. You should always self-reflect a healthy amount to understand if you might be doing something that's inefficient for yourself or not. Okay, so number 8. Scholars read many different sources. Seekers test out the base logic and understand why it actually works. That way from experience. So a scholar says you can read many sources and you can get like the big picture of it. But to really get down into the trenches, you have to be able to break it apart and understand why every single one of those parts work together in the bigger picture. So that's how you're going to get a better understanding of something. And that's why the best source is yourself, because some sources might be looking in the big picture. Other sources may be looking at the layman's terms. But what matters is both of them sort of working together, because if they don't work together, there's overlooks, there's inaccuracies. You won't be able to ever get a 100% accurate source. That's why you have to keep your source as yourself, and yourself isn't even accurate. But it's better than something that says I am 100% accurate, because the thing is, when you say you know that you do not know everything, you're always improving yourself. You're always improving how much you know about a said subject. You're always improving your source material. You're always improving what understanding you have of it, which is a lot better than a written source that everybody just copies and it stays the same. Because now it will always be at that level of inaccuracy. It will never be improving in any sort of way. And it may even make people less intent on even trying to discover things for themselves or even invent anything new. It also leads people to being a lot more manipulated than others because a lot of things go over their head. And if a lot of things are over their head, then people can use illogical stances by hiding one of the better choices and making you choose the worst choice for you. Because with the logic of mathematics, the best choice might not actually be the best choice if the best choice is hidden or removed. 9. Work on removing negative thoughts or distractions. Politics, anything you're not trying to improve on, ignore them and focus on yourself. Basically, don't let people or things get into your head. Like, just understand yourself and work on the stuff you're studying on. Like, you can't just have all these thoughts, like, bothering you, because what happens is you're going to get distracted and you won't be learning as efficient as you could. You could spend like 2 hours, just 2 hours every day, or even 1 hour every day studying something. And if you're not distracted and you have no negative thoughts or anything, you're going to be coming out a lot more productive than somebody who's constantly distracted, didn't get anything done in that hour. 10. Don't blame others. Focus on yourself and become better every day. So if you are in a low spot, this might sound harsh, but it is your fault. It's not others' fault. It'll always be your fault. And I have to say that because that's sadly kind of how it is. if you believe somebody, if you get tricked, if you trust someone but then they backstab you, it'll always be your fault. Like, it might suck, but it's true. It's like the only person that can stop you from getting into that situation is yourself. So the best way to stop that from happening is to make sure you can't get tricked. And which is why I'm going to make this video. This is why I'm talking about these subjects. And it might be a black screen, but I feel this is very important things that people should maybe look back on and look into, because these are pretty much life skills. And number 11, take your time, have fun. Because if you're not having fun, you ain't gonna be learning anything. You ain't gonna be like keeping this stuff in your head. You won't be improving. Like, if you're not having fun, your attitude will go down the drain. But you gotta have fun. You gotta be a little bit more creative, you know? You gotta work on that stuff. But yeah, this is the first one. I don't know what the next one will be. Depending on, it might be how mathematics and how data can be used to trick you. I'd say anything that's from a computer is so inaccurate, even if the study is accurate. And what that really means is a computer and everything within a computer is so fundamentally bendable. So I've been studying coding, and I have learned like what makes everything in a computer, and all of it, it's all just logic gates, switches, and really my best determination of it is it's like making a language, and when you make a language, you can make up whatever the hell you want, and you can make how you want it to work however you want as well. Meaning, every piece of data that is within a computer, if it is accurate to real life, it is made accurate to real life. If it is made not to be accurate to real life, but look like it's accurate to real life, then, well, that's the intended effect. That's how they trick, man. That's how they do it. And that's why the best source is yourself. You can always trust yourself. You can always trust your instincts. And I believe if somebody says you're wrong, and then they say, oh, this source, they're not thinking for themselves. They're thinking through other sources. And you ain't going to be actually improving. You're basically working on outdated source material. Outdated and possibly inaccurate, depending on whoever made that source. And even if they're known to be a good source, it's still the same thing. It's kind of like you don't know their intended actual understanding of it. You don't know if they're writing it because they're getting paid by a company to write it that way. You don't know if it's written by a parent company. You don't know if it's some sort of form of advertising so a company can get more sales. You don't know if it's like a politician trying to get a specific policy because they decided the only policies that they have was A, B, but they excluded C because they just hid C and pushed it under the rug and made it seem like it wasn't really an option. So, but C was better than option A, so they just pretty much make it to where you don't have the best option that's usually for everyone. And there's only two options, and whoever the majority is, it gets pushed into that favor. And if that policy they want is within their specific majority, then they will push it to there. But in the end, it doesn't matter which party it is. The whole idea is it's the two parties fighting against each other, and we want this policy that's more on the end of this party so we can push it all the way over there, because guess what? We can do that because this party is the majority in this standard, and we, the government, want that policy to specifically exist, even if it sucks for this party or this party. So, There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. There's a lot you can actually do when you focus on these skills. There's a lot of bad you can do when you focus on these skills. But majority is, I believe, a lot of people in life, every single person in life should be taught these skills. Because the more people that know these skills and are taught these skills, the less likely it is people can actually trick you and go over your head. It's as simple as that. I hate people that do that shit. I really, really hate people that do that shit. It's dishonest, it's lying. And I've never liked politics. I've never liked any of that bullshit. I always appear like somebody that's standing on the fence, when really I'm not. I always understood that there's something else going on. And I want to know exactly how to help other people to see that same thing. So, that is why I uploaded this today. I feel incredibly isolated. I don't just feel incredibly isolated. I also feel like I have been always in a place where there are people that don't think the same way as me. But really, I've always thought in this kind of way. I have always worked on myself with these specific points. And I believe anyone can get to this level. Because if anything says, if I was like in middle school and I was getting D's across the board, I was in college and I was getting A's and B's by the time I was in college. And I went to college early. But I stopped going to college because it wouldn't teach it in the way that I understand. And I also understood that college is like copying. It's not really understanding. It's like memorizing, not really learning. And I've always felt that even the people that I've seen as those people that are working on themselves aren't actually working on themselves. They're just trying to chase a bag. When really, the bag comes automatically if you work on these skill sets. Like, I don't understand why they're trying to teach all this bullshit when these skill sets are literally the thing that make you good at anything you want to get good at. It's really bizarre. But, determine yourself if I'm fibbing or not. As I said, your best source is yourself. So you can not believe me. You can say, oh, it's all bullshit. But I would also say, think about it. Find out for yourself. Put these points to the test and see what works for you. And I don't know when the next one will be because I really just went through a lot of it right here. But, yeah. That is what it is, man. That is what it is. Yeah, I do play games, but I don't do it as much because I've been studying because I felt like I've been wasting a lot of my life. But yeah, that's it. That's it. This black screen. I don't even know if anyone would listen to this bullshit, but this is what it is, man. See ya.